When it's springtime in the Rockies and my lips are turning blue, I'll be slogging through the blizzard like a brain-dead caribou. Ah, springtime. That first hint of life beginning anew, the annual transformation, the earth taking off its long john, shedding its skin, clearing its throat in long tubercular coughs that turn rain into birdshot, sleet into ice, ice into snowflakes shaped like goat heads or barbed wire, not falling, but slicing by you like shrapnel, sand-blasting your face, freezing your rain hand into a claw, and turning 45 degrees and balmy into assault with intent to stupefy. Ah, springtime. Brave wild flowers bursting from winter's blanket, the trill of the mountain bluebird, the exultation of a rushing brook, the whine of a spinning tire, the splock of pliers dropped from your hand, the rattle of mud tags on a feedlot steer that make him sound when he walks like a limping Moroccan bride, that half-brave, half-scared elation of aiming your truck toward the muddy dirt road ruts like a boat captain docking with the current, like Fast Eddie trying to run one down the rail. Ah, springtime. The anticipation of a new bride or a butterfly waking in his cocoon, like Christmas Eve with all the presents of summer waiting to be opened, the weatherman declaring winter's over, angels celebrating the vernal equinox by hosing out Gabriel's hog confinement shed, drip-drying their laundry between the mountaintops, and revving up the wind chill machine for one last recalibration. Ah, springtime. For me, it's best viewed through a picture window, setting by the fire. Once again you'll hear me promise, you'll be hearing from me soon. When it's springtime in the Rockies, I'll be calling from Cancun.
I'd like to talk to you about horse people. You may have one in your family. You know it when you sit down at the table with a horse person, because the first thing they start talking about is horses. On and on and on. And if there's two of them, you might as well get up and leave, because you ain't going to get a word in edgewise. And cowboys are the worst. You can be driving down the road, three of you in the front seat of the pickup. You'll pass by this big old meadow. There'll be 52 sorrel geldings out there, every one of them with one stocking leg and a little snip right on the end of his nose. And this feller sitting in the middle will say, "See that one out there, 17th from the left? I broke him in 1985. Well, how are you going to argue with somebody like that? I never knew what to say to him. So I wrote him a little poem I called The Horse. A majestic and beautiful species of animal, each individual of which has a personality and appearance all his own. And this poem is dedicated to those individuals who go by many names, who can look at a day-old colt one time and pick that sucker out of the string 12 years later. If the subject is horses, I'll say, I work with them day after day. Big ones and small ones and short ones and tall ones and black ones and old apple grays. And in making my rounds, I observe the creatures I studied to serve. Some are polite and some offer to bite, and some of them tested my nerve, but I tried to make friends with them all. So they'd remember when I come to call, each one is unique, whether mighty or meek, in pasture or paddock or stall. And when they say, he's a son once removed, and show me the papers to prove, I nod and agree, 'cause I want 'em to see that the bloodline's one I approve, and I smile when they point to that chart. And I allow that the horse is right smart, but they'd not be impressed if they knew, I confessed, that I can't tell the boogers apart. Tom says it ought to be against the law to sell a rope for 20 bucks. Well, roping starts out innocent enough, you know. Just get the feel of it. Maybe you go buy one of these roping dummies and stick it in a hay bale in the backyard, 18, 20 bucks. Pick up Leo's book on team roping, $12.95, and get your roping glove, 98 cents. Just a way to kill time, you say. Without meaning to, you start hanging around team ropers. Talk centers around roping, but eventually it gets to horses, and your horse has about as much interest in roping as your ex-wife did. Somebody mentions a good, maybe you ought to go look. It's only 1,800 bucks and no more than a family season ski pass. The kids can always go next year. You start reading the sports news in the Western Horseman. The saddle you've got is serviceable, but if you expect to win, you gotta have one that's built for ropers. You could buy a custom-built one, but they're so expensive and they take so long to get, so you compromise and break down and buy one off the rack. It's only 1,100 bucks. All you have to do is cancel that trip to Mexico you'd planned with your wife on your anniversary. The local arena where you're roping is only 8 miles away, but you can't ride that horseback twice a week. So you start scanning the want ads looking for a good used trailer. You find one. Might need a little paint, some rewiring, and possibly some new tires, but they only want 3,500 bucks for it, and it's really not much more than your oldest kid's college tuition. But she can always get a job. Builds character. So you pull your new trailer to the local ropings with your 4-door Chevette. That lasts about 6 weeks. So you get a brand new dually, 4-wheel drive. Repaint her to match the trailer. It's only $18,000. Cash in a couple CDs and take Mom out of the nursing home. Load up. Now you can go to some real tough roping, win some big money. Gosh, I hope I do as good as I did last week. I almost got third money. Loop slipped off a hock. Oh well, I only lost $45.
I like a pickup that looks like a truck and not like a tropical fish, or a 2-ton poodle with running lights, or a mutant frog on a leash. Give me one tough as a cast iron skillet with a bumper that's extra large and a hood that weighs over 85 pounds and looks like the prow on a barge. I like style, but since when should a truck be touted for comfort and ride? Power windows on pickups remind me of jeans with a zipper that zips up the side. They should soak up the dance of everyday life like a boxer losing his teeth. And I like a truck when you lift up the hood, by gosh, you can see the ground underneath. Pickups are kind of like welding gloves. Pock marks are part of the deal. Not pretty, just built to get the job done, like the dummy behind the wheel. Well, don't get me wrong, I know beauty's skin deep and ugly is in the eye, but to find out if your truck is my kind of truck, here's a test that you can apply. If you have a small wreck in the parking lot by backing a little too far, Your only worry is how big a mess you made of the other guy's car.
No telling how many good dogs he outlived. No matter how good your dog was, he'd once owned a heeler, a collie, or a gyp that does everything your dog does, and more. Same for horses and pickup trucks, though the one he drove was a wreck. Best I could tell, he didn't have nothing, but I've never seen that affect his opinion on anything you might own. From a purebred bull to a bit. By the time he'd finished pontificating, you'd wind up sucking hind tit. Like the time I was bragging on one of my dogs I'd sold at the top of the year to a herder who worked for Basabe's ranch. They said that my dog had no peer. It was 7 miles of circuitous road from the lower field to the lane. They'd send my good collie to bring the sheep home and never had call to complain. He'd start 'em out where the new highway sign warned, "Caution, livestock crossing ahead." Then herd 'em north to the Conoco billboard. Turn right till a homemade sign read, "Palumbo's Tomatoes and Vegetable Stand," where he'd turn towards the 4-way stop. Platteville read, "East." So he'd go till he reached Dick's Welding and Sheet Metal Shop. Take a left on Bromley, up past the barn that advertised hay by the bale. Till at last, he turned up the Willer Creek Road by a sign that said, "Rabbits for sale." At the 3rd mailbox, painted Basabe sheep, he'd fetch 'em just like he'd been shown and drive that big bunch of scatterbrained woolies up the lane. Just him, all alone. Top that, I thought. You crazy old coot. He said, "Well, that's mighty impressive indeed. Though I'm not surprised, 'cause my dog spent last year teaching all them sheep how to read."
We ran this old cow in the squeeze chute. She rattled and fought all the way, and then rammed a hind foot through the side bars and managed to cow kick Jose. He dropped the syringe he was holding, stuck in the toe of his boot. At least now she's protected from lepto. He gave her the gringo salute. She wedged a big horn in the head gate and dang near flipped onto her side. And it occurred to me, not for the first time, how nicer she'd be chicken fried. She thrashed and created a shambles, everything not battened down, moved the whole chute off its footing, knocked poor Jose to the ground. We finally somehow got her captured and squeezed with her head sticking out. My job was to check on her dentures. I carefully reached for the snout. She buried her nose to the hubcaps and watched with her little pig eye till my body leaned into the strike zone. Then she swung her head like a scythe. "She's old," I yelled as she grazed my ribs. "Hell, you never look," said the boss. "Well, check her yourself," I shot back right quick. Could be my eyeballs were crossed. The vet plunged himself to the armpit in search of a pregnancy there. I prayed every year she'd be open. If God would just answer my prayer. "She's bred!" came the cry from the backside. Like always, I drew the short straw. It looked like another long winter with Darth Vader's mother-in-law. Jose and I watched her departing. We'd spent quite a while with this bunch, and
Knew that old cow for a hoodoo. The dang sure would eat a man's lunch. She'd climb up your rope like a viper and make a man hunt a new job. And any poor fool that dismounted could wind up on her shish bob. She might grab the lead when you're trailing, or maybe just brush up and hide, but she'd take a horse in the willers, so you best be ready to ride. I reminded Jose how we'd saved her. That time she got stuck in the bog. I lost a good rope in the process, and she wallered Jose like a hog. You nearly got drowned, amigo. Verdad, muy mala that cow. If we'd have flipped her for the coyotes, my foot, she wouldn't have hurting now. The boss was surveying the wreckage. I think this here tailgate is broke. Say, Jose, did she get all her shots? Jose eyed the boss. Then he spoke. She's missing the one she's most needing. La puerca's too much with her tricks. You mean, asked the boss, vitamin A? Oh, no, senor. 30-odd Sikhs. She cried over the cat. After all that happened, she cried over the dang cat. Christmas was hectic. We had 12 relatives here for 5 days. Then in January, we had a blizzard. I was down at the state capitol for a committee meeting, and power went out back at the ranch, and the water was off for 48 hours. She and the hired man got the cows all fed, but they lost 4 of them anyway. I tried to phone her, but by the time I got through, she said they had things pretty well handled, but for me to hurry home anyway. We had our little bull sale. She made the programs and printed the flyers and mailed them, planned lunch, and smiled at prospective buyers for a day and a half. We had a good bull sale, but she didn't get much rest. It rained in March. The new calves got the scours. I was calving, so she kind of took care of the scouring calves. Between that and hauling the kids back and forth to school and treating the sick ones, she kept pretty busy. And just before the regional track meet, our oldest broke his leg. He was bedridden for 2 weeks and bitterly disappointed. She waited on him hand and foot. And at the branding this spring, she fed 34 people out of the back of a pickup in the far pasture. First day it got over 85 degrees, she went to town for parts. On the way back home, the car broke down, and she had to walk the last 4 miles, and when she got home, she found out the crock pot had shorted out and all the beans had froze to the bottom. Of course, that is the night the school superintendent just dropped by. Well, she finally went to the doctor about that pain in her hands, arthritis, kind of what she suspected. Getting older. In the last 6 months, we've had 2 car wrecks. A well pump went out. My mother came to live with us. We developed a leak in the roof right above the kitchen sink. The gophers got in her garden. The meat freezer gave up the ghost. I sold her favorite cows. Our insurance went up, and I had to start taking high blood pressure pills, and they canceled her favorite TV show. It's been tough at our place this last little while, it seemed like, but she never complained. She just bowed her head and kept going. We had company last night, and this morning after they left, I found a dead cat in the driveway, a black tomcat, one of the barn cats. I never knew she cared about him. He never came in the house. And I found her upstairs, just crying her eyes out. "The cat?" I asked. She nodded, and I held her. Women, they cry over the strangest things.
When I was a kid, I had an ambition. I wanted to become a rodeo star. I used to ride bulls till my brains came in. Unfortunately, I wasn't very good at it. But I had a friend on the rodeo team there at New Mexico State named Charlie England. Charlie could ride a bull. And I used to say to him, Charlie, why can't I ride bulls like that? Actually, it was more like this. Charlie, why can't I ride bulls like that? And he'd say, Bax, you've got to practice. I said, what? Practice? Riding bulls? Does that make any sense to anyone in here? Well, I'm going to have a train wreck tomorrow. I better have one today to practice. But I gave up riding bulls and have taken up the gentleman's sport of team roping. And I'm no better at that than I was riding bulls. But it doesn't make any difference. I just do it because of the company and the fun that I have. And I was trying to explain team roping to a cousin of mine who lives in West Virginia. I said, team roping, there's a header in the box over here, and there's a steer in the middle, and there's a heeler in the box over on this side, and the header backs up in the box like that, jerks out old horse back in the back, spins him around 85 times, pats him real good, shakes out a loop like that, jerks him again. You know, screws her old hat on tight like that, boy, nods her head furiously, and that steer comes out of the boy, and she comes railing like that, boy, catch him right around the horn, goes to Dally, goes this way, the heeler swoops out, catches both hocks, goes to Dally, goes this way, they turn, face one another, and snuggle the steer gently between them. And my cousin said, well, how do you tell the difference? And I said, of what? Well, she said, the header and the heeler. Well, I said, the header, back to the box, comes out, ropes, steer bound the horn, goes this way, the heeler comes out. No, she said, when they're just standing there. And it occurred to me that you can tell the difference when they're just standing there. You can go to any roping or rodeo, get them off the horse, line them up against the fence, all the ropers. You can almost go down the line and pick the headers from the heelers. So I did a little survey. I canvassed the PRC XWA, Pro Rodeo Cowboys Ex-Wives Association. Large group, yes. And the Team Ropers Anonymous Halfway House. And I've come up with some guidelines that may be useful to you should you ever be put in the position of having to distinguish between a header and a heeler. But for this demonstration, I need to borrow a baseball cap of some kind. Thank you, Luke. Thumbs up. And just my size. 3 holes. How to distinguish a header from a heeler? The header usually has his hair styled rather than cut. We're number 1. The heeler cuts his own hair. Always needs a shave. The header drives a fairly new pickup and trailer with a coordinated paint job. The heeler, he's still buying recaps. And the paint job on his trailer matches the primer on his brother's barbecue grill. The header usually has 2 horses, his favorite and one in training. The healer, he got 1 horse in training and for sale. The header will discuss the lineage of his horse. He's out of an Easy Jet mare, full cousin to Stick. The healer will discuss the lineage of his tack. Yeah, I used to ride broncs in this saddle. Association tree. Yeah, just bolted this horn on, wrapped it with duct tape. Yeah, D. Pickett, give me this halter. The header has ulcers. The healer has a hangover. And when it's all over and they're back behind the chutes, discussing endlessly why they lost, I believe the verb is whining. The header, bless his good and noble heart, he'll blame himself or his horse or his rope or his wrap or his loop or his dally or his timing or his technique or the wind or the steer or overtraining. The healer, yeah, he blames the header.
A word about making copies of this video. As you might expect, it is illegal under sections 2 through 12 of the Code of Conduct established by the Cowboys for video purity. But even worse, should you make a copy of this video, you become subject to the curse of Mondo, which can result in excessive hair loss, itching, duodenal spasms, trail ride compaction, frequent urges to mark your territory, cramps, nausea, false pregnancy, esophageal polyps, axillary reddening, mite infestation, pathological generosity, a morbid craving for hand lotion, plugged pores, pinched nostrils, earwax overload, twitching, a fascination with miniature horses, the uncontrollable desire to go to auctioneering school, an addiction to butter substitutes, an allergy to barbecued ribs, okra toxicity, asymmetrical earlobes, post-maturation foot growth, extra toes, boils, bunions, blackheads, clavicular collapse, carotid convulsions, contumacious behavior, bad back, blue bag, biliary blockage, biorhythmic arrhythmia, poor circulation, poor relatives, poor finances, fluid buildup, flabby biceps, floppy discs, trucker's suntan, loose morals, less muscle mass, diminished salivary secretion, an aversion to chocolate chip cookies, a fear of rubber tires, a desire to go without socks, and the uncontrollable need to strip to the waist and howl at the moon. So, although you yourself would never consider copying this video, there are those lacking your high ethical standards. They should be cautioned against it, lest they fall prey to the temptation and spend the rest of their life under the curse of Mondo. Oh, Duff slept in the bunkhouse in the corner by the wall. Nobody slept beside him. It was self-defense, that's all, because Duffy was a chorus of expulsions in his sleep. It sounded like a freight train going through a band of sheep. His sinuses would vibrate till the quilt slid off his bed. His snores would roar unmuffled like a chainsaw in your head. His hiccups crashed like cannons firing off the starboard bow. He'd hack and cough and whistle like you'd stuck a bloated cow. The window panes would rattle, the barometer would drop. Her covers started flapping, the wood stove blew its top. Amidst this raucous tumult, we could hear him changing gears. He'd belch like bullfrogs rutting. Then a new sound filled our ears. Big bubbles started forming deep within his swollen paunch and rolled through him unhindered like torpedoes toward the launch. We'd lay in apprehension as we listened to the din in dread of what was coming when the final guns kicked in. Well, the new kid was a rookie, and because the bunks were tight, we had him put his bedroll next to Duffy for the night. He drifted off uneasy, what with Duffy's serenade, but when the cookie crumbled, his whole bedroll came unmade. St. Elmo's fire went dancing. Radiation filled the room. Whoosh! Blew out the lantern. I heard a sonic boom. An eerie echo rumbled. I thought I saw a flash. The kid sat up, electrified, his face as white as ash. What was that? I heard him cry. I think I'm paralyzed. I must be going crazy. I see stars before my eyes. Nope. You ain't going crazy, but the world turned inside out, 'cause Duffy's last contortion blew the roof right off the house. If you've been losing sleep at night about the public lands, you're not alone. We're all concerned with changes wrought by man. The wilderness, to have and hold, is what it's all about. And we can save the wilderness by keeping people out. By Audubon, you know I'm right. It's humans who befoul the habitat of prairie dog, of elk and spotted owl. A wall. We need a giant wall to keep the riffraff back. But since they own the public lands, we'll probably catch some flack. So I propose the following: a theme park by the wall, a simulated wilderness, man-made, au natural. The next best thing to be in there. We'll call it Wilder World. A place where you can get moosed out, get badgered, skunked, or squirreled, immerse yourself in waterfowl, commune with ancient trees, and though they seem so real to you, they're all facsimiles. That's right, my friends, a theme park that's politically correct. No tame coyotes or dancing bears to lessen the effect. At Wilder World, organophobes will love our guarantee. No living thing was sacrificed to build this park for thee. Imagine trees with cement bark beneath a glassed-in dome. Stalagmites rise from old cheese whiz in caves of styrofoam. A carbonated geyser that awaits your beck and call. Just put a quarter in the slot and watch the waterfall. Then travel down our nature trail. This ride is really neat. See hibernating bear rugs sleep and never leave your seat. See bullfrogs made of fiberglass, eye plastic dragonflies, and get the perfect snapshot, 'cause they never blink their eyes. Ceramic deer and pop-up wolves in thrilling lifelike scenes. See automated leaping fish in bubbling brook machines, synthetic birds that lip-sync tunes and fly on hidden wires while Bambi grazes astroturf on tiny rubber tires. And finally, as a final treat, we've one last memory planned. Our rangers, dressed in chipmunk suits, will eat out of your hand. The tour just takes an hour, but if you don't want to go, just wait in the museum shop and buy the video. And if you're still not satisfied, when leaving you can view the posh resort beyond the wall we call Camp David 2. But you'll be sleeping easier, knowing all the cash you blew will help protect the wilderness from folks like me and you. When I look back on my career, it never did exist. I tried to ride the broncs and bulls. I truly did persist, but I never won a buckle. Oh, second now and then. So now that I've got older, I'm a roper, born again. But somehow, things are still the same. In fact, they've gotten worse. There has to be a reason why I never come in first. Well, friends, there is, it's sad to say. I learned it yesterday. I was entered in a jackpot, and pressing all the way, McIntyre was in the lead. And in his final go, his heeler single-hocked their steer and dallied up real slow. Well, I made a national finals run, which left the crowd in awe. And when the dust had settled, Mac and me had fought a draw. We gathered round the judge to see how he would break the tie. I got to wondering if them rules of dress code should apply. I pointed out that McIntyre was wearing tennis shoes and decked out like a refugee embarking on a cruise. Why, hell, his ratty t-shirt said 8 seconds ain't so great. Well, if that's no violation, then there's none to violate. The judge thumbed through his rule book to attempt to clear the fog. I hung on to his pant leg like a broken-hearted dog. Oh, please pick me. I never win. There's always something wrong. The timer's clock was faulty. My handle was too long. My horse was old. My rope was new. The flagger was too slow. He ducked his head. He drug his heels. You listen to Judge. You know, it's not my fault. It never is. The sun got in my eyes. My hat blew off. My dally slipped. I wasn't synchronized. The judge ignored my pleading as I knelt there in the dirt. You can have my stamp collection, my brand new Elvis shirt. I offered him my wife and kids. I'd nothing left to lose, but he finally paid attention when I threw up on his shoes. He turned to McIntyre and said, "He's right, you get no time." I skipped a beat. By dang, I thought, I'm about to hit my prime. After years of grim donations and paying for the ride, I was gonna win a buckle. It felt so good inside. The judge looked down at me and said, "You're getting second place. By rights, that buckle should be yours, but you're a special case. The roper's rule applies to you. No matter how you try, you're doomed to be an also-ran unlucky kind of guy. I could ignore your conduct, but I'm sticking to my guns. In rodeo, like real life, you whiners chafe my buns." I write a little column. Bowler took it over last week. Let me read it to you. Hi, friends and fellow cow dogs. I, Baxter's faithful, unappreciated good dog and best friend, have substituted my column for his, because he takes great delight in picking on man's best friend, us, the all-American cow dog. I can't tell you how much money he has made riding on our name. Go get in the pickup, you ha ha ha. Funny as a peach pit in their gravy train. Let me tell you, I hang out with this turkey. He is not the cowboy he claims. The only way he can rope a heifer is by chasing her so long she falls from exhaustion. He likes to make occasional reference to his veterinary skills. Our ranch is the only place I know that has less than 10 cows, and the rendering truck stops every day. He went to a Ray Hunt horse training clinic. That's a laugh. Become one with your horse. The poor fool isn't even one with his dandruff. About the only thing he's one with is his roping dummy. I spent the summer watching his Jippo cow operation, thank goodness, because he strung 15 miles of hot wire all over 12 acres to maximize his grazing.
Bad dog.
Pasture looked like Flanders Field. The cows finally gave up and learned to crawl under it. I don't know how many more trips to the sale the Valdez will make. His 1964 stock trailer. He makes me stay in it while he goes into the sale barn.
Yeah, good dog.
Anyway, nothing changed much. I still ride in the back of the pickup, but he never sweeps it out. All that brush and sand and hay, I sat back there in a blizzard of trash. But I'm working on him. It could be worse. I could be a town dog. P.S. Lefty says she's doing better after the amputation. Good dog, boy. Yeah. The very first time I saw him, he was coming off of the truck. The order buyer had averaged down, or else just plain got stuck. So he went in a pen of feeders. But when it came time to sell, the packer buyer cut him off. And the reason was plain as hell, because he looked like a long-haired Jersey. At least he did to me. And there might have been a camel somewhere in his family tree, because he'd shed his hair in patches, past the point of no return, sort of like a shaggy carpet somebody'd tried to burn. So he went with tail enders and got sorted off again and made the rounds when springtime came, just going from pen to pen. And that summer he went out to grass and never gained a pound. We vaccinated him that fall on his second time around. The weeks drug on, but I kept track. In truth, he was hard to miss, because he stuck out like a cold sore on the lips you'd planned to kiss. So one day I told the foreman, you know, old Red's been here a while. I figured his performance up and it's time to reconcile. I'd calculated that he'd had 600 days on feed. Been through the chute so many times, he was almost broke to lead. He'd eaten 16,000 pounds of grain since he'd begun and converted at a ratio of 202 to 1, which, in fact, is pretty sorry, unless you're raising whale. So that morning on the 1 ton, old Red got shipped to the sale. Well, I was bragging at the horse barn. Now I'd probably get a raise for pointing out that keeping poor producers seldom pays. Some of the boys objected, but sentiment has no place in hardcore ag economics, and Red was a classical case. The foreman cut my lecture short that evening just about 5. Get your butt down to receiving. Time for the trucks to arrive. New cattle were coming from auctions, local and countrywide. When I went down to unload them, I dang near laid down and cried. Old Red come strolling off of the truck like Caesar entering Rome. He gave me a sort of a gotcha look and said, "Hi, honey, I'm home." What do sheepmen, border collies, and mules have in common with cowboys, horses, and blue heelers? Nothing. They have nothing in common. They got off different ends of the bus when they got here. Mules, for instance. I've never known a stupid mule, but have you ever known a sly, clever, cantankerous, belligerent, vindictive mule? Of course you have. That's why they get along with sheep people so well. Now, don't misunderstand me. It's It's simply because sheep people are practical and they'll put up with a smart mule as long as he'll drag the camp and pack the pots and pans. The cowboy, on the other hand, he thinks he got to show the mule who's boss. You don't show a mule who's boss. Mules are kind of like cats. They're just living at your place and doing as little as they can to get by, to stay there. Now, horses, on the other hand, are more frivolous creatures, and that makes sheep people nervous. In fact, fun in any form makes sheep people suspicious. Speaking of nervous, though, one of the greatest genetic creations on the face of this earth, faster than a speeding bullet, more powerful than a locomotive, the energy of a hummingbird, the work ethic of a boat person, the loyalty of Lassie, the border collie. When you see them zipping and whipping this way, driving these animals through these obstacle courses at these stock dog trials, I get overcome when I watch them doing and I notice that they're communicating all the time with a quiet person standing over in the corner of the field. And you know it's a sheep person, because have you ever seen a cowboy outstanding in a field with a cane over his arm? Unless he's showing hogs, of course. And as you watch this, you realize that these two are communicating almost telepathically. And I personally begin to get overcome when I realize the effort that it took, the time spent, the boring, repetitive hours on and on. And they both love it. They're serious as a root canal, these two. Now, the cowboy, on the other hand, he's not into dog training. He figures, I didn't have to go to school to be a cowboy. This blue heeler just knows it instinctively. The best way to describe the relationship between a cowboy and his dog is it's sort of a hike it to me and go out for a pass. But sometimes something happens. A sheep man will go in the cow business, or a cow man will go in the sheep business, and a mutant is formed. The sheep side of his brain keeps telling him, vote Republican, go to educational meetings, eat the heel, pay cash. And the cowboy side of his brain is thinking, oh gosh, you know, I've got all my money in long-term CDs, but I'd like something a little less risky. I think I'll buy a racehorse. It was the night before Christmas, and Rudolph was lame. The vet from the North Pole said, foot rot's to blame. I'll give him some sulfa. It's the best I can do, but stall rest is needed the next week or two. Great Scott, cried old Santy. He turned with a jerk. I won't get through pier if my headlights don't work. On Interstate 40 I'll surely get fined and lost in Montana if I'm flying blind. No cop in his right mind would give any clout to a geezer who claimed that his reindeer went out. So he gathered the others, old Donner and Blitzen. Were there any among them whose nose was transmitting? They grunted and strained and sure made a mess. But no noses glowed brightly or ears luminesced. It's bad-luck in bunches, cried Sandy, distressed. We'll fly Continental, the Red-Eye Express. I'll just check the schedule. He put on his glasses. When up stepped old Billy, the goat from Lamb Passes. He shivered and shook like a mouse on the ark, but his horns were a beacon. They glowed in the dark. Sandy went crazy. He asked, why? With a smile. I just ate a watch with a radium dial. Where I come from in Texas, we don't have thick hide. My skin is so thin it shines through from inside. If that's true, then let's feed him, cried Sandy with glee. Gather everything burning and bring it to me. So Billy ate flash bulbs and solar collectors, electrical eels and road sign reflectors, firecracker sparklers, a lady chic shaver and lifesavers, all of them wintergreen flavor, and jelly from phosphorescent fish, and day-glow pizza in a glittering dish, and candles and fireflies and stuff that ignites. Then had him a big bowl of northern lights. He danced on the rug and petted the cat. And after he'd finished and done all of that, to store up the static electricity better, they forced him to eat 2 balloons and a sweater. When he opened his mouth, light fell on the floor, like the fridge light comes on when you open the door. His Halloween smile couldn't be better drawn when he burped, accidentally. His high beams kicked on. "Hitch him up," cried old Santy, and they went on their way. And I remember that Christmas to this very day. The sky was ablaze with the stars shining bright. They were shooting and falling all through the night. And I realize now, though my fingers are crossed, what I really was seeing was old Billy's exhaust. The sun shone dull on its metal bars. The snow lay drifted against the frame. Behind the barn near the rusting cars, it's ended up all crippled and lame. An old squeeze chute I'd opened and closed on 100,000 heads and horns, dragged to the boneyard to decompose. Forgotten rose in a bed of thorns. I lay my hand on the frozen steel. The head bar polished as smooth as glass. The memories flowed and the past revealed itself like magic. I knew at last why through the years of sweat and toil, despite the urge to romanticize, I hated it, just like a boil that throbbed like the Starship Enterprise. Its dinosaurial, devious brain, laying in wait for liver and loin, slipped a ratchet and jiggled a chain, then rendered me a blow to the groin. It came to collect its pound of flesh, a finger here, there a piece of shin, the aching ribs recalling afresh a gleeful, scything crack to the chin, hot forged in hell by the river Styx. It's what we'd see if devils could weld. They say machinery and cows don't mix, and that truth has never been dispelled. So maybe I'm being too unkind. There are some who say she deserves a crown, and in kindness I could be inclined as final tribute to melt her down and mold her into a plumber's snake. A generous way to salute her and pay her homage for old time's sake. Every time I called Roto-Rooter.
How many of y'all have ever been embarrassed by your good dog? Yeah, me either. I got a good dog, Australian Shepherd. He's got one blue eye. I believe that dog loves me. I believe I love him. Yeah. And he'd go with me anywhere. He don't care whether I'm walking or horseback or foot. He just wants to go. You know, when I say, "You want to go?" He don't say, "Where are you going?" Going by the video store? No, he don't care. He just wants to be with you. And did you ever notice, when you leave and come back, it don't make any difference whether you've been gone 5 minutes or 5 days, your dog is so glad to see you. Can you think of a single human being that is that glad to see you? No, just like you run into town, right? You run out in the pickup, you forget the keys, you run back in the house, the dog licks your hand, and your spouse says, "I thought you left." I got a neighbor, good neighbor. And a good neighbor, when you live on the outskirts, is somebody who lives just the right distance away. Close enough to circle the wagons if you're in a bind, and far enough away to have that privacy that people like us value. I believe those are Kansas plates, Mother. Now, my neighbor's got a job in town. She lives by herself, and she gets home every evening about 5:15, and I can see her out over there coming through the house. And pretty soon she comes out into the backyard wearing her coveralls. Yeah. And in her backyard, she has got a long line of rabbit hutches. And she spends what is to me an inordinate amount of time messing with them rabbits, talking to them.
Hi there. How are you? Would you like a little carrot? Yeah.
Singing them little rabbit song. And I'm sitting out on the back porch one afternoon, rocking away. I got a porch swing. Yeah, I do. Just rocking away out there. And I look out there in the driveway, and there is my good dog. And he has got, whoa. And you know how you can tell from a distance that it ain't a jackrabbit. They aren't black and white. They don't have them little floppy ears. And he has got this rabbit, and he is going, whop, 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 whop. He's grabbing and barking, branches and dirt flying all over everywhere. I jump up and run over and say, give me that rabbit. Give me the rest of him. Whoa, whoa. Go get in the pickup. Ah! This rabbit looked bad. Looked like it caught on fire and somebody put him out with a weed eater. I looked over at my neighbor's house. She wasn't home yet. So I took that little rabbit inside and I run the tub full of warm water and tested it with my elbow. And then I got some of my wife's good shampoo. She gets it at Holiday Inn. It ain't that big a deal. And I suds that rabbit up real good and hold him on the warm rinse water, and I suds him up again real good, hold him on the warm rinse water, and then I get my daughter's moose and mouse that sucker. Made him sticky. You could hang him on the tile. Peel him off like Velcro. And then I run him upstairs to the laundry and put him in the dryer. Little booger come out and looked like an electrocuted porcupine. And then I took this little rabbit and I sneaked over to my neighbor's house. And sure enough, the last rabbit hutch on the end was cocked open and it was empty. So I took this little rabbit and I folded him. Into a rabbit position. Put a smile on his lips. All three of them. Give him a little Copenhagen, lean him up against the wire. I went back over to the house, sat down, commenced to rocking. Yeah, about 5:15, I seen my neighbor drive up. Yep. Seen her pull up, seen her come through the house pretty soon, and she come out to the backyard wearing her coveys. She started down that long line of rabbit hutches, talking to them rabbits.
How are you? Oh, you're so cute today. Yes, would you like a little lettuce? Here you are. Would you like some? Don't you bite me, little bastard.
Singing them little rabbit songs. Do 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 do. All of a sudden, I heard her scream. It was far away. And so I run over there, being the good neighbor that I was, and I said, "What's wrong? What's wrong?" And she said, "My rabbit." And I looked in there. And the little duffer had fell over. It didn't look good. And so I reached in there and I picked him up and I stroked him gently and I said, "Well, ma'am, I believe he is dead." I was a veterinarian, I could tell that. She said, yes, but what bothers me is I buried him 3 days ago. Okay, sorry.
Standing by, we're still rolling.
Hi, honey. I'm home. Hey, hey. Whoa, whoa. All right, you guys done? The gravy train, let me tell you, I hang out with this sucker. I don't know why you can do anything to make me go. Okay, now you ready? No company's right. Whoa.